Yo, it's Mo Flava. You're here for the catch-up, right? Nice one. Always good to have you back. But don't forget, the real vibe happens on 947, weekdays 9 a.m. to 12. In the meantime, kick back and enjoy more of the good stuff right here on Prime Media Plus.
You're listening to
Mo Flava on 947.
Now, I know it's school holidays and, some of the kids are bugging us about Easter egg hunts and this and that and holidays galore, whatever. But, hey, we love the break from school holidays, but we don't get a break from the fees. Now, it was the other day and I was looking at this article in Business Insider, I think it was, Business Tech SA. I think that's the publication that posted the story, just around how some parents are really struggling from a financial point of view to put their kids through private schools. In other words, your child is in private schools and then, the economy does its thing and all of a sudden you're like, nope, that's it. I'm hauling my child out of there. I need to take him or her to maybe a government school, which is perceived to be a little bit more affordable. Now, this is nothing new, but what I've also realized and even in my own peer group, there's just so much anxiety because there are a couple of people that I know that had to take that route where things just got so expensive that they had to, take kids out of private schools, which are perceived to be much better than public schools, and then take them into a public school, which is perceived to be the opposite in terms of affordability, etc., etc. But my question is always the shame or the slight embarrassment that I pick up from some parents, like, are things that bad? And I just feel like, there's so many good schools, both private and public. There are some great public schools and there are some not so great private schools and vice versa. No doubt about that. But if it ever had to come to that, what would the easy decision for you to make be? And if things did decide that they're going to go sideways, is moving your child from a private school to a public school an option? And if you've had to take that route, what sort of thinking went behind it? And how did it honestly make you feel? How did it make your kids feel? You look at what's happening with the cost of living and everything is going through the roof, and then obviously something's got to give. So has that ever been an option for you? And have you had to look at other ways to try and make things happen for your child's school? I can tell you now that all my kids go to a private school, but I went to a government school, a really good one, Northcliffe High, and I believe it's still a good school. But that's just the decision that you make as a parent. Not that the school I went to was not good enough. It's just sometimes it's convenience, close to your house, etc. And all of those things go down in there. So 0663818609. I'm really trying to just get a sense here of your options. And once your child is in a private school and somehow it becomes being an exercise that is not so affordable, does it become a stress when you have to switch to a public school? And how was that switch and that transition? It's school holidays, like I said. So I think this is the best time to just look at some of these things while the kids are away from school.
947.
Now and then, you and I take stock of some of the realities of life because, that's the thing about adulting. And sometimes we find ourselves in a very interesting crossroads where everything is through the roof. Maybe you've changed jobs. Maybe there's salary cuts, unexpected expenses, financial pressure, etc. Situation in the Middle East, blah, 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 oil prices. And then things get so intense that at the end of it all, you're like, okay, cool. I can no longer afford these fees at this private school. I need to switch. And sensibly, perhaps it is the right option for you, given your financial situation. But the emotional and psychological side of it, I've found with many parents that I know, is quite a thing, where the elements of like a bit of embarrassment or shame or degrees of failure. All I'm saying is, if you're doing your best to give your child an education, honestly, that's good enough. You know what I'm saying? That is good enough. We're not all going to have kids at St. John's. We're not all going to have kids at some of the most expensive schools around town. We'd all love our kids to go to, St. Mary's or Redham, Crawford. But sometimes it's not the case. If they're at Jeppe High or King Edward, that's also fine. You know what I mean? Bernadette in the East Rand. Good morning.
Hi, Mo. How are you?
Very well, and you?
Good.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's not people's financial situation. I think it's sometimes our government situation that forces people to make a decision. I mean, we had this last year, especially for people going into grade 8 in the East Rand. There's only 2 really good English government schools, and you need about feed 8 primary schools into it. It happened to 2 close friends of ours. Her one child only literally last week found out she could go to grade 8. She's a half of term she missed because government never placed her.
I get you.
You're jumping from a school fee from, say, 2,800 to 8,000 Rand. The government's going to phone and say they got a space fee. You need to move your child. It's a huge saving. So
I hear you.
I think it's sometimes not about, is it a financial thing? You had to get your child into a school. Another friend of ours had to switch to Afrikaans to get into a school. They were number 260 on a list at the one high school, and they only took 60 kids in. What do? You'd rather do it. That's what we're doing. Our daughter's going next year to grade 8. We did all the homework. She got accepted at Ashton. And she went through the paperwork, but at least it gives us a year ahead to plan to afford those fees. But if she's going to get accepted into, it's a very good 2 high schools that we've got here nearby. I'm possibly going to change again.
I'm curious, Bernadette, the names of those 2 schools that you mentioned, if you may, out in the east, like you say. What schools are these?
The one is Hans Moor. They've got the Afrikaans and the English.
Right.
And I promise you, it's a pristine school.
Right.
I mean, you wouldn't even know that your kids is in a government school.
And that's a high school?
And a high school.
Okay.
And right next to them is Benoni High, also a very good one. But the one that is very sought after is Hans Moor. And they only took 60 kids in the English stream.
Yeah. Benoni High, I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I absolutely concur. And Hans Moor, I'm hearing about it for the first time. But I'm also just pointing that out, Bernadette, because I think for a lot of parents, it might be decent options. But essentially what you're saying is, it's not always about a money thing, it's about a space thing. And if there's no space here, then sometimes you have to opt for schools that, are either going to price themselves here or there, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're jumping from 2,800 fees to almost 9,200 Rand for next year.
And that's literally from government to private?
Yes, because I'm not going to sit and wait. What GDA opens about June, July. Like the Cape Town, at least, is ahead. They've opened up already now.
I see.
And I mean, the placements, our one friend only found out last week her child got placed, and she's already in grade 8. She missed the first term. She ended up doing homeschooling. She couldn't afford private schooling.
Yeah, absolutely. Bernadette, thanks for that perspective. Bernadette out in the East Rand saying, listen, sometimes it's not that we have a problem with government schools, it's just that we can't find damn space. And then you have to opt for options or private schools that perhaps may have the space, but also come with a bit of a heavier price, as it were. And that's the other way around it, where the switch up. But ultimately, sometimes, and based on what gets written about in terms of what's happening with the economy and parents, etc., with private schools and government schools having to take their kids out because it's too expensive, I'm just trying to get to the sense around the emotional and the psychological side of things. Money's the one thing, I understand, but how does that make you and your kid feel when you have to make that switch, if you've ever had to?
947.
We have to just wrap up on this one. The realities of taking your kids through private schools, 130,000 Rand a year, for example, and that's just preschool and grade R. And then it starts getting a little bit more interesting. It's no wonder why you get articles in businesstech.co.za which reflect the realities of how some parents are increasingly withdrawing their kids from private schools. But I mean, there's a good case for private schools. You know, the argument around strong academics, great teachers, solid discipline and cultures, real world exposure. And then for some, it's really just all the branding and there's not much substance in there. You don't even like the culture. But the reality is it's perceived that if your child is in a private school, you are doing well. So when the economy does this thing and you have to switch and maybe take them to a more affordable school, sometimes public schools, you know, what's the psychology behind it? Is it the fear, the pride, the image, the sacrifice that You made it and it's still not enough. I've got Nesha on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Mo. I hope you're well.
I am great, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Great topic, and I think one that first time I'm actually on 947, but I think this topic for me is, I think over and above the fees, there's one thing we don't speak often about private schools is the diagnosis that happens, the referrals to the occupational therapist, the play therapist, a pediatrician, psychiatrist. Like, I feel like I'm paying fees double. It's like a whole community of people that are linked to the school that your child gets referred to. And it's a cycle. So your school does some assessment with their psychologist or whatever, and then your child is diagnosed ADHD. There's no science behind ADHD, but nonetheless, your child is diagnosed with ADHD. Now they have a play therapist that comes to school or is at school twice a week with your child. You've got occupational therapists that your child must go to twice a week as well. So the fees almost double. Not only are you paying a 20K a month, you now have an additional 11K because all these therapists must be paid over and above medication that you must buy, over and above every 2 months to take your child to some doctor that needs to tell you they must take these pills. I think for me, that's where I'm at, and I'm not sure. Yes, ADHD, there's a big thing about ADHD, but over and above giving your child medication, we're not stopping. For as long as your child is not zombified, I often refer it to, then they're not happy. So it's piling up. So I'm at a point, I'm like, okay, if my child took medication, went to an OT, maybe then public school is the way to go.
Perhaps.
There's a few public schools in my area.
Sure.
I'm in Randpark Ridge. Randpark Primary, I believe, is one of the good primary
very
schools.
good school.
Maybe it's worth
100%.
Maybe it's worth taking my child there. So for me, at the moment, that's a deciding factor.
I'm curious. I often find that when certain things are identified early within your child, neurological or otherwise, it does help you deal with it a lot earlier in their life so that it doesn't somehow stifle them as they get older in the academics or any other space. Is that not a good thing? I'm trying to understand to say, if such things are discovered early, surely that's a good thing. But then what you're probably saying is, the cost that it comes with as far as having to resolve some of those issues.
100%. And it escalates, Mo. I don't even think that you do the first round and the second round and it's okay. I'm 2 years on it. And every now and then there's an additional pill. Oh, no, we just want to stabilize the mood. So we'll give him a mood stabilizer. So it's just... But also your child is growing, right?
Sure.
So there's new things but also you now have a different child. My child is totally different on holidays because I take him off everything versus a child that goes to school that is on number of medication that the child is taking. And I'm just like, when does it stop?
Yeah, I'm curious, Nesha, is there a benefit to everything that the school has suggested?
I haven't
the
seen
route?
the benefit.
Because I was going to say then, surely maybe you have a choice as well as the parent. Yeah.
It's more a piece. It's more of a piece. Because if you don't, because there's instances where I've pushed back. If you don't, then they're reporting every incident. Oh, your child stepped over somebody. Oh,
I see.
I have like 50 support groups. Oh, your child threw somebody's pants. So somebody pushes your child. Your child can't push his back because he's a boy. He's bound to push back. So now you're getting all these messages almost on a daily basis because you've refused to take up one more therapist your child to do.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that in these couple of minutes, Nesha, you're able to vent a little bit because I can tell that it's quite frustrating. And yes, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or however people choose to refer to it is quite common, and we see a lot of it with kids. And ultimately, you as a parent have the choice on how you want to deal with it. But interesting story. And I'm pretty sure that there's a parent listening in, Nesha, right now who is totally with you. They get the picture fully and commiserate with you, or at least are with you on that. So thanks for sharing your story. And I hope you find a place where you can make a decision and do what works for you and your child.
100%. Thanks, Mo.
All right, thanks. But yes, I agree. On that note of Randpark Primary School, very good school, even though they were our arch enemy when I was back in primary school at Cliffview Primary School. As I digress.
947